Hello and good morning, and welcome to the Service Table Podcast. Back in your feet again for episode 3. What's up, Troy? How you doing this morning?
Doing well, man. Can't wait to talk about our little bit about Sila or also morality.
Ooh, it's time for morality. Oh man, here we go. Today's episode is brought to you by tea. I'm drinking tea this morning. What you drink? You got a cup? What you drinking?
I mean, I got this thing. I've been dehydrated, so I'm trying to make sure I drink a lot of water.
Water.
Here in Florida.
It's important. It's important. Water's
Yeah.
important. Yeah, man. All right. Morality. Yeah. So last time we were talking about like Sila, or it got brought up, we got like 5 Sila. How many?
Yeah.
5, 8.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
5 and there's 8. Right?
Well, 5 precepts, which are the core. So yeah, I would say 5. Yeah.
Yeah, the five core, and then like the monks have what, like, and so I keep hearing different numbers. Like I heard 108, 200 and something.
I mean, it's in the 200s. That's all I know. Like
it's in the 200.
Yeah, and yeah, we can. That's something you can look up for sure anytime.
Yeah, I don't know either. I've never been a monk officially. Maybe unofficially.
I'm gonna look it up though, just cause.
All right.
Fully ordained monks observe around 250 precepts.
Wow.
There we go. That's good enough of an answer.
That's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So okay, precepts are like what are they? Just for our audience, they're like they're kind of they're not rules, right? Oh, I guess they're rules, right? Guidelines.
Yeah, they're more like guidelines. They're not commandments. They're just like something to do your best and observe, like guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's like a whole like thing about intention, and like is the intention, well, okay, so let's go over like what are they? Like first one is because there's the wording's different too, right? Because there's one that's like I undertake the training rule to abstain. Like there's that format, and then there's like another format. Like I know they're worded in the positive, right? It's like they'll word them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like quit. It's not like I'm gonna quit smoking per se, right? It's like I will abstain. So it's like a positive. It's not like don't smoke. It's
like holding yourself accountable kind of thing.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah, they're like it's like worded as a positive action. Like I will abstain as opposed to don't smoke, or I'm not going to. It's not word. It's not like
it's not black and white. It's not black and white, pretty much. It's not like if I don't do this, something bad's gonna happen to me. Like it's just I'm doing my best to follow these rules, and because it's kind of more gentle and self-loving in a way, right? Because otherwise, you just you screwed up again, and then you feel very bad because it's black and white. But in reality, we are gonna make mistakes. We are working on ourselves in the sense. So we're still imperfect, and we're still and the one that I always come back to that I hear people talk about at the table is intoxicants, like, oh, but I still want to drink my beer, or like people still have their things that they enjoy. And there's no right or wrong in that sense when you say abstain, and these are things we follow at the meditation retreat, right? Because it helps us surrender to meditate. Obviously, if you're drinking and you're buzzed the whole time, you might get sleepy. I mean, you won't be able to work. And, it's going to be a little bit more challenge to be mindful. Like you might be talking because you're intoxicated and you're supposed to observe noble silence and stuff like that. And these rules are to help you get the most out of going within, in this retreat. So
yeah, definitely.
That's one way to explain it for sure. Yeah.
No, I mean, but they help, right? Like every time the mind is anytime you aren't keeping things like I don't even want to say like clean like that. Like every time that it's like a distraction, right? Like it's like if you're trying to study and you're playing loud music, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
So
Not conducive. Yeah.
it's not conducive to. So hold on. I went and Wikipedia'd it real quick just to like so we can just make sure we're on the same page. Like I know we practice and we kind of embody these things, but really to like verbalize them is a little different. So the first thing to attain is that they're ethics, right? It's like a
Oh yeah,
ethics,
so ethics. Yeah.
based on an enlightened perspective, right? So it's about, I guess, enlightened perspective to me means seeing things clearly and as they are. We talk about that all the time, like seeing things as they are. So yeah.
Yeah, to be mindful, these things will help you when you don't do them, or it'll help you practice to be mindful, let's say.
Yeah.
It's just like code of conduct. Like if you go to a workplace, they say, oh, you got to be a certain way to fit into this work culture, right? So because it's going to help you get maybe more work done and not be distracted, maybe because, you have a dress code, you have, watch your language, have good hygiene. I mean, those things are just to improve this work environment for you to, do the best in the sense.
So that makes me think like, okay, like that makes me feel real religion about it, right? So we're not really on it like that though. It's more like self, right? It's not like you have to do this to be a meditator. It's about if you do this for yourself, like you're the whole job site, right? So it's like your culture within, not like to be a part of any organization thing, right?
Yeah, the whole morality thing is the 5 precepts, at least, they're very standard. Just to go over them real quick, right? Like the 5 precepts say you abstain from killing, abstain from stealing, abstain from false speech, also intoxicants and sexual misconduct. So if you look at the course, right, how it's set up, it's all conducive so you don't do those 5 things. And at least for the retreat, right? But in daily life, that's being like a good person. If you don't do those, intoxicant, what does that mean? Like that's, I think, a big one usually. But obviously, abstain from killing, you understand what that means, But they take it a step further and they say don't kill animals, let's say maybe. Or
no, I mean
some people take
it real hardcore. I remember on my first retreat, we were it was in the desert. I went to the one in 29 Palms, like by Joshua Tree. So we were it's in the desert. We walking around these little ants. There's these ants that was making these hills, and somebody made a circle around the anthill, right? So that people wouldn't walk on the ants. Like, like really just in it. Like I'm going to abstain from harming any kind of life,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen, everybody sees things differently, and some of it could even become a distraction, right? Like to go within, you're like, oh, I'm gonna save all the animals right now.
Right. Like that's what you focused on.
Right or wrong again. But yeah, you could take anything to the extreme, which is, again, it doesn't have to be. It's just we are at the place where we are now, and that's why they say the words abstain, like we were talking about. And that's why it's very powerful that they're not saying, it's not black and white. It's not a commandment. Don't kill anybody or anything. Like that's very hard to swallow for most people because we still maybe eating meat, or we might step on a bug, whatever, by accident. I mean, things happen, right? Like I'm driving my car. There's a lot of bugs that are getting killed. So yeah, you could feel very bad about this if you look at it in a very, like, black and white way. But, yeah.
I mean, but that's interesting you say that too, because there's also the warrior's path, right? Like the samurais and stuff like that. Like their whole thing is about like being able to commit to kill basically, and still being very like peaceful and not generating that like the hatred and like, okay, so like just really quickly, like the reason behind that rule, right? the reason behind not killing is so that you don't generate like anger, hatred, all these things that harm yourself, right? Like it's not don't kill for this, and to have compassion for, you know, living beings, and all of those things are important too. But a lot of times it's like anytime you get angry, you are really harming yourself more than you're harming the other person. So I think that that's where that, you know, or that's what, what's his name? One of the teachers used to say, one of the ATs, was that it was about not harming yourself.
Which AT? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna call out any names right now, just because, you know, I don't have, you know, I didn't ask them if I could talk about it.
Yeah, the no killing thing is interesting because in a way it's harming yourself because you're gonna feel guilt, or you're gonna feel this negativity, because to kill something, you gotta have this in you to kill something, right? Like it's not like, you know, I'm just gonna go step on this bug. I mean, we can look at it in different ways, right? Like it can be very strong, like, oh, I'm killing this thing that's living, or it's like, oh, I'm killing this pest that's, you know, gonna infest my house. Like, you know, it's different ways to perceive it. But I think the main thing about, I mean, I don't want to say the main thing, but one of the things about killing something else is, like, one of them is like, why would you want to kill something? Because if you understand, like, if you really understand we're cohabiting, I mean, everything's together in a way, you know, like they were here probably first or whatever, who knows, it doesn't matter. But, or we need to eat them for protein, so we're killing them. So there's, of course, this mindset around killing that makes it maybe okay, at least for now. I mean, I'm still eating meat and everything, and I still kill bugs. So, you know, it's, I mean, I definitely feel a little worse now about it than before. But and I'm eating less meat nowadays than before. So things are definitely changing in that way. And it's very, you know, I'm not forcing myself to, and maybe it's not a bad thing if I did like try to be like, oh, you know what, maybe I'll stop eating pork first, because I've thought about it, I've tried a little bit of it, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but those pork dumplings though, like I gotta have some still. So, you know, like, and it's still an experience, but I definitely, that doesn't happen as often as it used to.
But
And
that's a different thing though, right? Like you're not killing that animal to eat it. Someone has already done that and brought it to you, right? Like
right.
Yeah.
But when you know, like, you don't have, it's because I'm still eating meat, people are still killing for me to have meat in this sense. But anyways, just, this can go on forever for sure about.
No, but this is a good one though, right? Like, because someone was saying like, okay, so like let's talk about like killing the bugs, right? Like I personally, like, I don't like any kind of pest, like nah. But like definitely rats over like I hate, sorry, not hate, that's a strong term. See, that's another thing, hatred, right? Generating that in myself, negativity. But I have a stronger reaction to like rodents than I do to insects, right? So like, you know, so there's something for that to be said about that, right? So like, and I just think about the process that it takes to actually do harm to a living thing, right? Like first I have to like feel this like deep, like, you know, visceral disgust, you know, within myself, right? I feel this like, you know, so first off, that takes me right out of my equanimity, my balance right there. Like the minute I see a rodent, I'm like, you know, it just takes me out of, this is like why I can't, like New York is just rough, you know, like you go into what's it called, like Union Square or something, and they're just running around, like it just takes you out of your balance, you know. First, that's the first thing that happens, and then you have to generate like this anger or this hatred, like that comes from this disgust, right? And then you perform an act of violence against a living creature, right? And that thing feels pain, sorrow, you know, all these things, you know. So it's like a whole process to kill something that we, even if it's a small thing, like a like an insect, or, you know, uh, like physically small, even if it's a physically small thing, it still has its own, you know, emotion or feelings, at least nervous system and sense of pain. So I think that's where
It
like
still
even like
has
the
life
argument.
and death. Yeah,
Go ahead.
it still has life and death. So
Right.
whether how much it feels or how little, I mean, like this, it's still alive, and we're ending this thing that. And the funny thing is, it's just going on its way, doing its thing. It's not like trying to kill, like it ain't out for you, but it's like, yo, what is this thing doing coming at me? And maybe it's trying to get some blood from you so it can live. But for you, a drop of blood is like, yo, I can't spare this. You got to go. So it
Yeah.
is pretty interesting how we are so important that other things become less important, I guess. Something like that, please.
What's the last thing you killed, man? You killed something lately? What you say you
I mean,
killed
I
bugs?
definitely killed a lot of bugs driving on the highway yesterday, and you can see them on the windshield. Like, I mean, it's almost inevitable unless even if I walked everywhere, I feel like I'd step on a bug by accident. I think it's something. At least this is my rationalization, that it's inevitable. But I'm sure if I sat in the house and I don't know, like, there's definitely one way to not to kill anything, but I wouldn't be able to move around freely as I do now.
Okay, so let me ask you, like when you were driving down the highway, were you like were you like counting them up like boom, oh there's another one, or like like did you feel bad?
No, definitely not at that level of mindfulness. I just know it's happening, like I know it's happening and I can see the results after, like if I look at the front of my car.
So are you able to maintain like your peace, your equanimity? Like what happens when that big like juicy one hits the script, when hits the
Oh
windshield?
yeah, it makes a noise. I feel it. That's a little different. Like if it's a big bug and it makes a big splash on your windshield, then yeah. But overall, like I always think of me as two different people, at least. Like I'm a driving trunk version and also a non-driving trunk. Like there is actually two of me, because when I get in the car, I'm a little different. Like
okay,
it's a very interesting thing, but it's like, I mean, road rage is real. Like, and also it affects me too. I'm not like that person who's. I mean, I definitely drive slower now, and I'm like not into a hurry, and like, but I'm still judging people who are doing those things, right? Like I see somebody just swerving in and out of traffic, I'm like, I'm over here already like, oh, why is this guy doing this? Like it's not safe, like. But I mean, that's just true. But also, I did that when I was younger, So it's just, I don't know. There's just, and I don't want to rationalize it all out, but I'm definitely more equanimous. Like I'm not gonna go chase them down or something and try to or brake hard so they get screwed up and like slow down. I don't do any of those things. Like let's say I guess react to it in at least in a physical form, but in my mind, I'm still definitely going through the motions of, oh, this is happening. This is not good. I don't like it. Like that sense.
Yeah. But that's good though, right? To observe and like be aware. Like that's the goal, right? You're just aware that you.
It's the practice, the practice, and then the goal happens eventually. I guess. I mean, that's why I'm doing it, knowing that in the moment I'm starting to be less reactive. In the future, at some point, it's going to be less and less of it. React. Maybe I won't react. Yeah.
That's the physical reaction. Are you talking about the mental reaction too, or just
all of it? Yeah. Like the physical is going away, pretty obvious. Let's say the mental is the one I feel like, because the mental reaction is also me beating myself up, right? Like it's like a whole nother dimension in the mind. Then the physical is easy. You can see it. And maybe you can even feel it, right? Like, oh, your heart rate's not jumping because this thing doesn't really affect you as much anymore. But the mind is still doing its conditioned thing. Like, oh, I still got to think of safety, think of survival, or, I got to make sure I drive, defensively, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is the survival part of me, being me, pretty much.
Right.
The ego, whatever, yeah.
So okay. So that's killing though. Like, okay, so killing and driving and reacting. I was thinking about the other one, because they say it's like to abstain from stealing, but it's also like another way that they word it is to abstain from taking what is not given. right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was a very like nuanced way to say that, right? Because like it almost leaves space for manipulation, which I thought was like kind of wrong. Like to because you could almost make somebody give you something, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But is that still theft? If you like,
Well, that's the intention behind it. That's always the case. So if
right,
you have the intention to take without it really being given to you, then you're already stealing. Yeah. In
right,
a sense. Yeah.
in a sense,
In a sense. Yeah. Like it wasn't given to you purely. Like they're
mm,
almost put into that position to give it to you. Like almost like a trade in a sense, or I mean, you said manipulation, so yeah, it's not what they want to do, but they have to do
yeah.
it.
I mean, I'm thinking Godfather, make him an offer he can't refuse, right? Like
Oh yeah, yeah.
that's like,
Yeah. Not
yeah,
totally. I get it. Like it's the stealing thing. I mean, yeah, when you look at the whole manipulating way, then yeah, you can see how theft is many different ways, and even your
yeah,
time, right? I mean, you could think of stealing in many different things. You can steal somebody's time, like, or because you want something, you can talk off their head, and then maybe take away even their emotion or their peace for that moment. Like it could, but of course, if they're in peace, it's not going to affect them. But I think most people, like even me, like if someone cut me off in my car, they're taking a little bit of my peace. I mean, for that little split second, I'm definitely gonna be like, whoa, whoa, like what happened? And then of course I can come back, but I guess you can look at that as stealing too. Yeah, I never thought about it. I mean, I just never thought about it like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Taking what's
I just,
worse. But I guess
I
that's
had
not
to,
yours though, but
I don't know, like, okay, so like that example you just gave, where like, okay, they cut you off and they're stealing their piece, but that wasn't their intention, right? So like we talk about like the intentionality behind things.
I mean, some
Um,
people's intention for sure.
well, yeah.
They know what they're doing. They think I did something bad to them maybe, and now they're trying to get back at me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying it could be, it could be.
Man, you be going through it on the road, huh?
I do, man. I just try not to drive as much, if anything.
So you're right.
And I have a big car, which is always funny. It's like I got all these little cars trying to run me off the road or something. I'm like you're not gonna run me off the road, but if you feel better about it, I guess.
Yeah, man, I like your truck, man. I was thinking about your truck the other day, man. You got all the bumpers and everything hooked up. I was thinking about it the other day.
That's one of my sufferings for sure.
Yeah, so but the other thing about like stealing too is like the greed, right? Like you have to generate, again, one of those things that's
Oh yeah,
harmful to
yeah, yeah.
yourself. You
That's
know,
right.
yeah, you're generating this like, or people are generating this like negativity. Because I think all of these things come down to like, without sounding too new agey or whatever, like just your vibration, right? Your level of like, you know, if you're generating anger and hatred and disgust to kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your energy level getting whatever, right? And then same thing with stealing. If you're generating all this greed or lusting after a material or
Yeah,
like manipulating, like that's a whole vibration that's just,
yeah.
not.
It's a low vibration for sure, and it's
Yeah.
bad intention, pretty much. Yeah.
Do you think intention sets your vibration? Like what?
I mean, it gives off a vibration for sure. So, of course, we can mean well, like intentionally, but if we don't understand what meaning well means, then your intention is weak, let's say, or maybe not even correct. So that's why, yeah, right. I mean, it's a whole nother conversation, but yeah, right understanding is important. Like, because even me before, like I was ignorant in the sense that I'm trying to make this one short, bro, because I can talk about this forever. This road rage thing, but like before I would rationalize my pain out. Like if someone cut me off, whatever, right? I'd be like, oh, maybe they didn't see me. Maybe it's a grandma. Like maybe they're having a bad day, or oh yeah, I've done that before, like it happens, like all these things. Oh, I'm still alive, why am I so annoyed by this thing? But that's just my way of coping with this anger or this frustration that I didn't want to deal with, and I would just push it away by thinking about it in a more healthy way, in my opinion. But reality, I'm actually ignorant, because that actually pushes away my problem and I never face it, right? So that's where my intention of helping myself, being more peaceful, a better person, wasn't really correct. Like, I mean, I was becoming a better version of myself in a way, but also becoming more ignorant by having this thing mask up this whole process of suppressing my emotions instead of going through them. So it's been interesting, but yeah, it's one of my things I always observe now, if I'm actually coping with something, or if I'm actually observing it and letting it, embracing it in a way, and just being okay with that feeling, let's say.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
That's
a big
awesome,
one.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Man, you said some things in there, man, that I just that kind of like touched
Yeah.
on a little bit of my own things, but that was
We're
interesting,
ignorant,
man.
bro. That's what it is. That's what we have in this
Yeah.
podcast, because we're ignorant.
I mean, that's life, right? The
Yeah.
whole thing is a struggle against ignorance, like because we talk about wisdom, right? Like Sila, morality,
Yeah.
concentration, and wisdom. Morality, concentration, and wisdom, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
three real.
And the reason why we're talking about morality too is because it's the foundation of, and morality is a basis for all societies, for all religion, right? Like morality is like the core value usually presented as in like, hey, if you're this kind of person, or if you embody these kind of traits, then you have a good chance of going to heaven or whatever, right? Like it's always something where like you need these things to be a good person, so you can become a higher version of yourself, in a sense. So
No, for sure. And even outside of like the spiritual religious context, like morality is just necessary for society to function. Like if everybody, like I don't know, sometimes when you go outside of the country and it's super corrupt and people are like, you can't even go down the highway without getting hit up for a bribe, like, those kind of things, like that shows you how dysfunctional that society is, right? So it's just like those little morality things are important, even just on that basic level, like on a human to human interaction level. So yeah, I think when it comes to, and I don't, for some reason, the term morality is actually triggering a little bit of my loss of equanimity, because it's not even like morality from the like chastising standpoint, like gotta be good or you're gonna get, this punishment. Like it's more like, because that's the word when I think about morality. It's more about like, I guess I like the word ethics a little bit better, but it's more like selfish than that, right? Like I'm trying to be a good person so that I can experience wisdom, or so that I can experience, deeper concentration or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's where it comes from a little bit.
oh yeah, no, I get that now, but before, morality definitely meant like good boy or bad boy, like you're gonna be a good kid or not, like you've got to follow the rules and be moral, whatever that meant. So yeah, it's much deeper now, morality, for sure. And I'm still learning, obviously, about morality, and I still learn on abstaining on certain things, but I'm not really hung up on it, I guess. Like one quick example, like intoxication, which intoxicants, I mean, for me it's something that has been like a more experiential thing in meditation, and more like how it affects me, and how I just let it go, kind of thing. And now that I don't drink anymore, because one day I was going out with my friends to happy hour and I was drinking, and I felt like I was forcing myself to finish alcohol. It just became weird, and I didn't believe it at first. And of course, I went to drink again, and then that time I knew. And then I just realized, like, oh, I just don't enjoy the taste of cocktails and rum, liquor, whatever, right? Like, I was just like, oh yeah, it's not even refreshing for me. Like, if I drink a beer, like, it was just weird. Like, I just had this moment of, okay, it's just not what I like anymore. And
Is it
also, yeah.
is it because you didn't like it anymore, or do you feel like you were just more aware of like was that always present, but you just kind of forced yourself to drink, and now that you're through your practice, your awareness had increased that you were able to see that, or was it just like just one day you were just done? Like, was it
I think
like
it's I think it's many levels. So on one of my meditations, I'll just say it. It's even when I was more like, oh yeah, I'm not like at first, because at first I was like, oh yeah, intoxicants is not good for me. I shouldn't drink as much. So then if I went out with my friends, sometimes I'd be like, oh yeah, I don't want to drink. Like, it would be like more like negative, like, oh, don't offer me anything, like, and of course your friends buy you drinks, whatever. But then in my meditation, I had this experience of people offering me drinks, like alcoholic drinks. And I'd just be like, oh no, thank you, I'm good. Like, very like calm, and like it's not a big deal. Like, I didn't feel like this negativity, like aversion or kind of thing towards it. I was just like, oh yeah, I don't want to have, it's like, oh, someone offers you a drink and you're not thirsty. You're just like, no, I don't want to drink. Like, I'm not thirsty. So, and then in real life, when it happened, of course people still buy me drinks because that's what we go out. Like, I still go to the bar, but I just don't drink. And I didn't feel weird about it. And that's when I realized, I mean, other people still felt weird because I wasn't the usual person anymore. So, but after a while, people got used to it. I was used to it, and I go out to drink less in the sense of happy hour and stuff. So in the end, it's just changed organically in a way. And yeah, but for me, like smoking too, like I smoke cigars, that's why I was drinking too. And even that, I had stopped for a while, but then I had to smoke because I was like, what is intoxicant, right? Like, it's anything like that that affects you physically and then mentally, right? Like caffeine, for example, right, can make me super chatty, and then next thing you know, I don't have noble speech or something. Like, I'm talking more than I need to, and that could hurt this person's feelings even, right? So I think being mindful, of course, a lot of things can affect you, even sugar, right? Sugar could affect you. And this is my rationalization, obviously, but like smoking a cigar, me hanging out with friends I know that won't take things personal, like, and also understanding the path, let's say, it'll be okay. I can have a smoke, So I smoke like once in a couple months, but I don't feel guilty about it, let's say. And yeah, I'm being more mindful about that, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if that's real or not. It's just right now.
Well, just to give the whole like rule real quick, right? It's like I undertake the training rule to abstain from intoxicants that cloud the mind. Like, it's like that's a long sentence, right? So like what you're saying with the whole like mental change, but that's and it's funny you mentioned like things like sugar and caffeine, and because those things are actually accepted by like within the practice. Like, they're like, okay, you can have sugar, you can, because it's not like alcohol where the effect is so like almost out of your control, right? Like, I think there's an element of losing awareness, right? Because you can be like hopped up on caffeine and sugar, and be aware, like, oh man, I'm geeked, I'm jittery, like I'm just like, you can be aware of that. But with alcohol, sometimes I think the awareness just goes away, where you're just like, you didn't realize you was about to fall on and hit the ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a level.
I mean, that's like the body losing control. But even with sugar, if you give sugar to like a little kid, they might start fighting another kid over something because they're feeling so much, or they might run them over or whatever, right? Like, they don't care. And that's what happens when you don't you're not mindful anymore. Like you can't, even though you're aware, you're not able to control it because, you know, like the mind and body are connected. I mean, they're affected by each other, right? So even if you don't feel good physically, guess what? You're not going to feel good mentally, mate. It could affect your mentality, right? Like you could feel lethargic suddenly. I mean, they have these names for these feelings. So, and again, this is just my opinion. Like, yeah, even food could be intoxicant because now you're feeling very negative about yourself because you ate too much of this greasy thing or something, right? And now you're going to take it out on someone else because you don't feel good. Like I was giving an example. I mean, you could be mindful and notice it, but the question is, how will you react always, right? And if you have the strength to react or not react, you know, in this case. So
yeah, I just don't want people to feel like they can't have like,
oh yeah,
you know,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like it's just a thing too, like because you typically when you say intoxicants that cloud the mind, they're usually talking about like drugs,
Oh
alcohol.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what the people are talking about. They're like, yo, don't get messed up, you know?
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
really what they're
No,
trying to
no,
say.
you're right. You're right. Usually it's
But no, but I agree with you that like because like I think when you get deeper into the practice and your awareness gets really gets there, like that's when you start recognizing the subtle changes that different things will bring to you, like sugar or like
yeah,
eating heavy meats. You know, like you know, I'm still a omnivore, but I definitely you know, and even like Gautama was an omnivore. Like he would eat what was given to him, right? So he wouldn't, you know, if someone offered him meat, he was going to eat it. So there's just elements of like uh there's just elements of that whereas your
oh yeah.
awareness increases and you know, hey man, like I didn't want to eat that, or if I was vegetarian for a month and then I eat meat again and my stomach hurts, like that's an awareness level, right? So I think uh most people aren't aware of the ways in which they are intoxicated, right? And that could be from anything. That could be from sound, TV, it could be from social media, that could
Yeah,
be like, you know, anything that's giving you that little hit of endorphin or whatever. So
yeah.
I think that's the you know, that's the strength, is gaining awareness to know what to abstain
Yeah.
from.
I think you're right. I mean, when they use the word intoxicant, it's definitely more extreme, like drugs and alcohol. And it's really changing the state of your mind, I guess, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is changes like doing shrooms, psychedelics, or whatever. It changes the state of your mind, and you're not clear. I mean, you're kind of, yeah, you're in another world in a sense in that moment.
So that comes up around the table a lot too.
Oh yeah,
People who are like, yeah, I mean, you know, they're like, hey, there's other ways to reach, because okay, like when you're sitting, you reach these depths of like understanding and like concentration and like higher, just higher understanding, right?
just more
So
awareness. Yeah,
yeah, more awareness, right? More awareness of the ultimate reality, right? For lack of a better way to say this, right? So then people will say, oh, but like, you know, I took, you know, whatever, like maybe ayahuasca, right? And I hear ayahuasca brought up a lot. They'll be like, yeah, that took me to this and that, and I was with the priest and this and that. And I always think to myself that that's cool that you reach those levels, but it feels like, I don't want to say cheating, but it feels like it lacks the thoroughness because you got there so quickly. Whereas if in the practice where we sit every day and we develop the habit pattern and the ability to enter deeper levels of concentration, that's really more powerful than just taking an intoxicant, which isn't necessarily clouding the mind, but it is changing your mental state, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh
there's that. You know, that's I wonder about that too. Like, yeah.
yeah. The thing with morality, you know, like it's a lot of opinions and your own experience in there, right? Like at first I didn't think about morality like this at all, especially intoxication. I was like, I'm fine. I'm not harming anyone. If I'm harming anyone, it's really just me because it's not good for me. But if I do responsibly, then it's fine. It's moderation. I always use the word moderation all the time. And now I just don't want to drink it. So it's just kind of, yeah, it's whatever, you know?
Yeah. So then after that, they talk about like so the hardest one for me, and I think for most people, is the false speech, right?
That's the hardest one for you?
Yeah, not lying, but
Uh-huh.
but false speech. Like it's different from lying, right? Like I undertake the training rule to abstain from false speech, right? That's different from going out and telling a lie. Because like they say noble speech is, what is it? Good, true, necessary, and accepted.
Something like that, yeah.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like accepted, like maybe you're saying something that's good, right? You're like, hey man, this is like, especially if you're trying to help somebody, it's like, this is good, this is true, and it's necessary, but you're not going to accept it. So it's not false. It's in that moment, it's false speech because you're generating negativity in another person. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
yeah, like a good example is just like, hey, you want to help somebody out, right? Or like, yeah, and they say, it's good. Like, hey man, you need to, you need to I don't know, whatever, brush your teeth, right? You need to brush your teeth,
Yeah.
right? It's good, it's true, and it's necessary to tell somebody that they need to, but if they're not in the mind state to accept that, you're just creating conflict.
Yeah.
So,
Well, then that's just the ego wanting to tell them something that they should do, or like you're right and they're wrong or something, or like you worry about them and you want them to have good dental hygiene, whatever, right? Like this is, I'm sure parents go through this all the time with their kids.
yeah.
And yeah, it's the intention behind it is again most important, but being clear and understanding, what we're saying and what we're doing, is the mindfulness part. The challenge is, oh, are we doing this just because we're this dad that's supposed to do this for our kid every day until they learn on their own? Or are we just nagging because our parents did this to us? Or, there's so many levels. Like, and if them not brushing their teeth one time is not gonna kill them, I mean, we all know this. But of course, we want them to become these good people in society, whatever, and take care of the hygiene. So we try to give them discipline, and it's very interesting. I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't really know, but I'd assume it's a lot of reflecting of yourself and who you want them to be. Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you another example. There's a saying I heard that I like a lot, right? And it says, nobody lies to another person until they've lied to themselves first,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, no, I like
right?
that. Yeah.
So you'll be like, so a good example is, I'm gonna get to this meeting at, you know, whatever time, right?
Yeah.
Because we all do that. We're all a little late sometimes, but that's really like they're saying to themselves, I can make it, I can get up, I can wake up, I can do it at this time, and I can get there by this time, right? We all do that. I do that, everybody does that.
I mean, not
So
everybody, but a lot of
not
people.
everybody, but most people do it. And that happens. And so they've told themselves, like it's like, oh, I'm gonna go out tonight. I'll be able to wake up in the morning and I'll be able to get there on time. But you know that if you go out that night, you're not gonna be able to wake up on time, and you're probably gonna be late. But you've already lied, you've already told yourself or rationalized that, and now you've made yourself into a liar by lying to yourself first. And
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
false speech element, that's false speech. So I think that there's just those types of things are like,
yeah.
you know,
I got a good one for this one. I always tell myself, "Oh, this is the last time I'm gonna do this,"
mm,
and then I do it, and then it's like, and a week later, I'm like, I'll do it one more time. And that's, I mean, for me, that's like really, really not good for me. But what you're saying, I'm lying to myself to give myself permission, like you said, going out or whatever it is. And then, I mean, I'm harming myself. I'm lying to myself. So this is, again, this is the practice of self-love, and, figuring this line out. Eventually you'll make better choices, hopefully. But that's all it is, like, but I see clearly now when I'm doing it, and I'm still like, but one more time though, Trung.
oh man, one more time. Ooh,
One
that'll
more
get you every
time.
time.
Man, that one is always there. I'm always like, why?
Yeah, I think that's one I think that because false speech is just like so many things. Like that's why we go through silence, right? Is because it's the mind. The other part of it is it's the mind, the chattering mind, right? It's just the mind, like, you know, that little devil on the shoulder, just always like in your ear, you know.
Yeah.
Either one, balanced, either see it either side, positive or negative. This is always, you know. But if you can just have that silence,
I feel
or
like the
that
voice.
stillness.
I feel like the voice is always like, I'm here still. Like, you know, like, look at me. Like, and the other thing about the noble speech that I think is good is because I can say something and they can interpret it in a different way. And even if I have a good intention, it could cause, let's say, harm because they don't see it as a good intention. Like, I could say, excuse me, and they could see it, they could hear it like, excuse me, you know, versus, oh, excuse me, can I squeeze through? You know, it could be who knows how they interpret it depending on how they feel. And when you go within, for sure, I mean, all kinds of stuff's coming up, who knows? But in general, noble speech for me is very much like that too. Like noble silence, I mean, it's like, oh, there's silence for a reason because who knows what we say and how it affects someone else, you know? Yeah. Or how what they respond with, how does that affect us, right? So yeah.
Yeah, which is that point of accepted, right? Good, true, necessary, and accepted. So like when you do speak, and the other thing about that too, that practice of silence before we speak is like that's so difficult. It's really so difficult because you just the instinct is to hear and react. You know, speech is one of those things that's very reactionary. Somebody says something, you react by speaking back, right? Hit, listen and react, listen and react. So to actually like be in silence, hear what somebody says, pause, interpret, speak, that is crazy difficult. And that's where the speech becomes noble, because then, like, imagine if every time somebody says something, you stopped and said, is what I'm about to say good? Is what I'm about to say true? Is what I'm about to say necessary? Will they be able to accept what I say? Like, that whole process takes so long. And that speech isn't like that. Speech is a quick interaction, dialogue, back and forth, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's what makes noble speech or false speech one of the most difficult of the precepts, you know.
And that's something we practice a lot as a server because, I mean, we're still talking when we're serving, and of course we can say things that could harm someone or make them feel inferior or not good enough, or we could come off bossy or helpless. I mean, there's so many, you know, ways to sound. And then this noble speech understanding that you just explained can help people slow down and think about what they're about to do. You know, like, oh, am I doing these 4 things or not when I'm talking? And it can help people slow down, even because sometimes we just talk for no reason, you know, just to entertain ourselves or entertain others. And the one thing I was thinking when you were saying about this whole talking, stopping, pausing, and letting someone else talk, like, even if you pause too long, it could be a bad thing. You know, like it's so
Right.
subtle, like these things that can harm people or harm yourself. Like, you're waiting, like, are they going to say something? Did I say too much? I mean, who knows what happens in the mind when this gap even happens? So yeah, noble speech is real interesting. Like you said, I mean, I guess it's more interesting than I thought, but now I get it more. So thanks for this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's intense, man. That I feel like that's the hardest one, right? Like the sexual misconduct. I undertake the training rule to abstain from sexual misconduct. That's fairly easy, right? You don't
I don't
have
know.
to
I think that's the hardest one, yo.
Yeah, that's the one you struggle with.
We all got our own challenges for sure. And I
Yeah.
mean, it's just our perception, but supposedly that's like the last thing that goes, you know? It's because
Really?
it's the most survival or natural thing built into us, right? Like, we're born a way to reproduce, and that gives meaning to our life, literally. Like, breathing and reproducing would be like the 2 things. If you look at any animal or even plant, that's why they exist, to reproduce. So it's the most core, I don't want to say the most core, but it's definitely deep in the survival, in this ego thing, let's say. Yeah.
I mean, I get the companionship part, right? Where it's like, I want a partner so that I can reproduce or whatever, right? I get that as a companion part, but like as far as like, I mean, that's crazy that you say it like that. It's like breathing. It's the most
It's
primal,
innate. It's innate in us, literally.
innate.
Like it's the fear of, because you think about reproducing, what does that mean? That means our genes live on. It's like part of us lives on. So if you understand, I mean, if you're scared of dying, then, or like, your last name surviving may be more a simple term, at least for men, I guess. But then you want to reproduce to have this mini you running around still in the future at some point, let's say. But this is again attachment to you or your ancestors, or I mean, I don't know, like there's so many levels. I haven't really thought about it that much. I just know that the central desire, at least, is deep, and I have different experiences around it when I go meditate. So it's always funny. It's like at one time I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to be in this really beautiful relationship of people, two people supporting each other. I mean, all this stuff, and then the next time I go, I'm like, oh yeah, that's all suffering for me, maybe, because now these things that I still have, like jealousy or whatever, all these things that I still have is gonna just pop up, and it's not gonna be that beautiful, probably. I'm gonna it's gonna be a lot of work, actually. So then I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I won't yet. Maybe I'm good being single right now. So it's just like these moments of, and like you said, it's not always like physical desire necessarily, but it's this desire of companionship or connection or support or whatever, love, whatever you want to call it. Because maybe I don't like enough. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I like how you said that it was all suffering, because I sometimes when I'm talking to prospective partners now, I'm always like, we have to really, before we get involved, we need to understand that this is going to end terribly. Like that's the kind of stuff I'll say.
Like, I mean, I'll be like, know about that perspective. That's like foreshadowing the doom of it all.
Well, or just to make, I'm really trying to like impart a sense of like awareness and non-attachment into the relationship, right? I'm like, we should like, I let them know, like, hey, I meditate, and we'll usually think about his suffering and things like that. And I've had a lot of these conversations about, because I'm pretty much of like, as much as my energy and spirit is positive, I have a lot of like negative talk in my head. I'll say like, which is true, which are things that are true that give me strength. Like I'll be like, it's all suffering, which is true. Like we live in a realm of suffering, and from there I'm able to find my balance and equanimity by being at peace with the suffering. So I always talk about it like, we're suffering. This relationship is going to be, the more attached we become to each other, the more suffering there's going to be, right? I'm going to love you, and when you go outside, I'm going to worry, and that for me is suffering, because I'm suffering in my worry. Like we're all going to suffer, and I'll tell them too, like, you need to understand that all these things can happen. Like we could lose the relationship, we could have a child and lose the child, and I want.
It's a lot of fear in the unknown.
No, but it is, but it's also a lot of like working through it, right? Like, think about this. If we do this, we're gonna have this relationship, and this could happen, right? Or like when she'll bring up something, I'll be like, hey, like let's talk about that, and let's sit with that fear. Let's actually really sit with it and think about what it is.
You go
right?
deep with these ladies, man. I don't know. I wouldn't stick around long, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I got my own problems, but you want to deal with yours? You can sit there and think about those things.
I want to deal with her problem, because women tend to worry more than men, and I think generally speaking, as a biological imperative. So I want to bring that up when usually those conversations come up when she starts to say something that I'm like, like let's, that she's worried about more so than I am.
I think it's important to understand that we're all suffering, like, because you're your own master. You got to know when you are suffering and understand yourself, what that suffering is. But I also feel like that term suffering, at least with other people like that don't meditate maybe that much, it could come off too negative. And like I try not to use the word suffering around people Yeah, I don't go around like, oh, you're suffering right now. Like, like that just sounds like you're a douchebag, and what do you know? You know what I'm going through. And so, yeah, like I like that definition of unsatisfactory, but even that is a little too weird for most people. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a challenging one, the suffering.
What do you mean by unsatisfactory? I don't know if I've heard this one.
Yeah, it's just unsatisfactory because you're not satisfied. That's what it means, right? Like, well, you're telling me you're not satisfied with what's happening or what can happen, and you're feeling this negativity because you're not satisfied. You're
Right.
Yeah, you're literally just, oh, I'm hungry, I can't eat right now, I'm not satisfied, I'm suffering. Like it's so the word satisfy, I guess, can mean strong or not strong. Usually it means less strong in the sense, but really it could mean I'm unhappy, whatever. Satisfy, I mean, you can, I don't want to say use a synonym as unhappy, but it makes you get that feeling of, let's say, negativity somehow. And yeah, it's
Yeah. So I get that, like the satisfaction element of of suffering, like, because what do they say? Um, Suffering is being associated with something that you don't want to be associated with, or disassociated with something that you do want to be associated with, right? So like, you know, I care about this person and I want to be with them or near them, but I'm not, so I'm suffering. Or I don't like this person and I want to be away from them, but I can't, so I'm suffering, right? But that can be applied to any kind of object. It can be applied to food, it can be applied to anything that enters through the five senses, right? So I'm trying to think about how that relates to the dissatisfaction that you're talking about. Like,
it's just fulfilling the dopamine or not dopamine kind of thing. Like you're either satisfied with the amount of good feelings you're getting, or you're dissatisfied with the amount you're not getting. So like with people, like, oh, I want to be around them, but I can't. Then obviously there, I mean, it's a deeper layer of you just not being happy in your own skin and just being able to be, and you feel like you need this other person to feel better or feel connected or feel, and this is how I translate it, to create memories, whatever, right? Like there's this weird thing, like even when I travel and I travel by myself, but then I travel with other people, I'm like, oh, that's kind of nice. I'm kind of making these memories with these other people. And then I'm like, wait, but even if I also travel by myself and it's totally fine too. So I don't know. I'm still exploring that, obviously. But in the end, satisfaction is just if it's feeling this thing you need or you don't, or it's feeling something you don't want, you don't need, but you're getting it filled anyways.
right, right. I mean, there's like, some of them said to me that there's an element of like passion in it, right? Because it's like in the suffering or whatever. Because it's like just thinking about it, like, I'm going to care so much about this person, or like I'm going to love you so much that we are going to be in so much pain, right? And then there's like some people like really feed on that vibe, and it's like it's like very passionate. So I think that that's where it's okay to like acknowledge suffering and all of it, and dissatisfaction. And you're right, though, people do misinterpret the word, like, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to suffer. What are you talking about? I'm not suffering. I'm happy. I'm a happy person. I'm attached to my sense of happiness. And from the standpoint from a meditative standpoint, it's kind of like I can't be happy until I acknowledge my suffering, right? Or until I'm aware of it.
I think another way to look at it is like the things that happen to us in life, right? Like we might look at it as a negative thing, like, oh, I broke up with this girl and in that moment it was so bad, like I was so sad, I was so like depressed, whatever. But then couple years later, that memory was like, oh my goodness, I'm with this other person, I'm so glad I got out of that relationship. She was negative to me. So this perspective of good and bad, or terms of like suffering, even, it's just in our perception, right? Like that suffering is just an opportunity to maybe grow or learn or survive, even. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's not anything that's bad. Like it can serve you, just like getting fired from a job can serve you, because now you found this other thing, or you found what you really want to do, or maybe you wanted to get fired this whole time and you didn't realize it and you got yourself fired. Like, I mean, it can go many levels, and I think suffering is not a bad thing at all. Actually, I think it's just part of the process, like you were saying, especially as a meditator. It's just something you observe. It's an opportunity to just observe, or you can say shift. You can use any word you want, but basically it's just an opportunity to observe and go beyond it. The same. Yeah,
for sure. So yeah, man, I think like if you had to like tell our audience like like something about morality that really has like made your life, about Sila. Let's call it what it is, because morality is a weird word. Ethics is those are all weighted words. If you had to tell them about something about Sila as we wrap up here, something that would help them to embrace it, what would you tell them?
Man, Sila, I mean, in the end, it's just you do your best, like, and yeah, it's going to be different for everybody. Just like what you said about, noble speech, and, me about sensual desire or sexual misconduct or sensual desire. Like, everybody's going to have their own parts of struggling or observing, and many different layers, maybe even. So for me, it's just being open-minded to, being okay with not doing it well, let's say, right? Like that was a big one for me, because I was drinking, smoking for a long time, even once when I was meditating. It didn't, because for me, smoking, for example, was actually like meditating, because you're taking these inhales. I mean, I smoke cigars, so it's like these deep inhales, and really being in that moment with this flavor or this puff, and then you exhale very slowly to gain more sensation. So it's all sensational stuff, and again, that's playing a game of sensation. But for me, it was kind of meditative in that sense of like observing and calming down, like, oh, I'm gonna go relax now and have a cigar with my friends. And then but don't, I would say don't be so hard on yourself, like always, because we're our worst critic. And just keep, I mean, as a meditator, just keep at it, because things will change. You've got to trust the process and be kind to yourself. And, if you need help, talk to people, hit us up if you have any questions, like, we do our best to be humble about it. And because that is the reality, we are not perfect. We're struggling just like everybody else. And that's the beauty of this whole process. It's like people understand, like, oh yeah, Trung's not perfect, but he's working on it. Like, that's it. And that's good enough, like, literally. And I show up, and that's what matters to me, at least. And I think that's what I try to pass on to people. Just show up. The more you show up, the more you'll get there. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You said a couple things in there that were really good. Like, keep showing up, and just like being like the self-love element, right? Like, our teacher always says, start again, right?
Again, man. My
Start
favorite.
again. Yeah. So, we go through the struggles and we just start again, we fall off of our morality and we just start again, and that starting again helps develop that habit pattern. So that's just beautiful.
It's so simple, yet it's not simple. Like, I mean, the same thing for the gym, right? Just go for 15 minutes every couple of times a week. That's enough. But still, I'm not going to do it, maybe, and then the thing comes back, start again. Just, okay, next week, I mean, I also do this one time thing, so it's not really good, but we all got our things to work through. But
is that the opposite of start again? This one time?
It could be like, oh, just this one time, I'm not going to work out this week. And then next week I'll start working out again. Like, you can twist this thing out in so many ways, man. Like, I know. So like, it's not a good thing for me, but it's a process, and it's just what it is,
Yeah, that rationalization, man, But it's funny you said it like that, because now I'm thinking, is just this one time the opposite of start again? Like, it's like,
it totally
so I'm gonna stick with start again, because that one time thing, I got, we do that too. But it's like just start again. Yeah.
No, start again is a good one. Like I think about that all the time. And that's kind of being gentle with yourself too. Like, oh, it's okay, just start again. Like it feels very like loving to me. Like, oh yeah, so what if I didn't do it or I haven't done it for a while? Now I can do it. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it also just speaks to the realness of it, right? Right? Like I may not have perfected it the first time I did it, right? Whatever it is, morality, going to the gym, whatever. But if I start again and I do it again, I'm gonna be a little bit better the next time. And if I fall off again, if I fall off and I start again, then I'm gonna be better the next time, and so on and so forth until it's a habit pattern, or until you've achieved that goal. You just keep starting again,
And as servers, it is a very cool experience to serve because I am still talking now and working with other people, but I'm actually being better at keeping my morality, let's say. So it's a very interesting experience for me as a server, like to experience myself in this more holy way in the sense, but still I'm doing the regular stuff I would do, let's say at work, outside of meditating at a center retreat, So yeah, it's a good experience for sure. And yeah, staying humble with it,
Right on. So where can our audience find us? They can find us on, what are we on? We're on Spotify now?
I think so. And on Instagram,
the IG, YouTube, definitely.
Of course. Yeah, we already got a few episodes up there if you want to check them out. And we're going to start live streaming too. We're going to announce that more later.
Right. Sunday service.
We're switching to Sunday. So look out for us. We're going to post it on our social media and you'll be able to know more about it there.
All right. Any closing words for the people?
Nope. Just start again, guys. Just start again. That's the only one I got.
All right. Until next week, guys. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us on the Servers Table podcast. Again, check the links and descriptions below to find us. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm Lloyd.
Strong.
See you next time.
Later, everyone.